Hi guys, welcome to the channel. I'm Dave, for those of you that don't know me, and happy 2025 everybody. This is being filmed now at end of January. The month's gone far too fast and we're far too busy, but we're cracking on and we're trying to keep you, my customers, my followers happy. So what questions have we got, Ben?
Okay, first question. This is on the Project Churchill video. What gear set in the LT230? 1.2 or 1.1?
So in Cagney, we went with the 1.2. The reason why we did that is because of the size of the wheels. We've gone with the 285 tyre on Cagney, to really fill the arches and give it some nice hefty stance. After all, it's got to live up to its character name.
High-low or CDL activation?
So we've got a gear stick in there. We do not believe in air shifters. And the reason for that, guys, is if you get an air leak and one of your high-low sticks was to basically pop into neutral, you're screwed. And my customers, I can't expect them to get underneath guys with a hammer or a screwdriver and force the car into high and low. So if you can't mechanically push it in by hand, we don't offer it.
At the end of that as well, they've put pneumatic, question mark.
That's it. So if you have an air leak, game over, guys. So think about it. Imagine compressor fails one day, fuse pops or something daft like that, and you're always in the middle of somewhere, I don't know, where you can't get underneath the car, say, and one of the pneumatic levers relaxes. That's all you need.
Question on the M57 2082 marriage video. Very good comprehensive video with all the do's and don'ts. Do you have a kit and video for the electronics and cooling as well?
No, we don't. So the reason why we don't do that, guys, is because I know I'm here to help you, but we're not giving all our secrets out, guys, because if we did that, what's the point in being in business?
Question on our recent video with Richard Hammond. Great video. I always thought Churchill was meant to have an LT4.
No, so Churchill was never meant to have an LT4. Project Move Over has an LT4 that you will see in our next video. So tune into that. That's one not to be missed.
Puma worst engine ever video. Great vid and survey of Puma failures. Is there a difference between 2.4 and 2.2 engines in terms of longevity and reliability?
So this has become a very big predicament on there. I want to say probably the most commented video we've done. Everyone has their view, everyone is entitled to their view, but what we see in our workshop is engines failing. People jump on my back and say, oh, my engine's done 500,000 miles, my engine's done this. That is your engine, guys. What we see in here, and if I have to go out there and show you every single engine that I've removed due to pistons failing, injector failure that's also caused bad combustion, that's blown rings, that's thrown rods. I've got one that's thrown a rod out the side. I think the best one was one that ran off on its own because the turbo failed. Yes, that can happen to any engine, guys, but because we are a Land Rover specialist, we see that engine more than anybody. And what I hate about the Pumas, guys, is how troublesome they are to diagnose when it comes to things like the M57. A lot of people think I do it as a business plea to say, oh, the Puma's bad, rip it out, put a BM in. I've remapped plenty of Pumas with Alive, and they're still out there working, hauling, and doing their job. So the 2.2 is a fantastic engine, and is the 2.4. I've seen some strong ones out there, but it's all down to longevity, how you've looked after it, how you've serviced it. Has it missed a service and done 30,000 miles on the same cruddy oil? That can just destroy an engine. So it's like a chap the other day inboxed me and said, Dave, he said, I've bought this Puma. It's making a horrible whistling noise. I'm about to give up with it. I said to him, I know exactly what it is. I said, someone's removed the DPF, someone's mapped it out, and I can guarantee they've messed with the EGR by putting a plank in there or like a thin shim in between the gaskets, and it's causing like a harmonic whistle. We've seen it here, guys. We've had systems that have come apart where, because it's really difficult to get to nuts and bolts, people can't get enough, like torque on the bolts to tighten them up. So it comes apart, EGR comes loose, and when you have, it's like whistling across a bottle top. If you have a pressure bun, too tight surfaces, it will whistle. And anyway, I saved his day. He sent me messages like, Dave, he said, I've changed turbos, I've changed this, I've changed that, and I saved his day and told me exactly where to go to.
On your LS3 conversions, is there a way to keep the original dash and the original 6-speed?
I believe Neen Overland actually do that option with the 6-speed behind it. For me, how aggressive the LS3 can be, personally I would be a Tremec man. So the Tremec Magnum 6-speed, which is what I put behind all my LT1s, LS3s. That is a very agricultural box that is designed to take the abuse and actually comes in things like Vauxhall, I think it's the Maloo, that kind of thing, as standard. So there's an adapter out there, guys, but you'd have to convince Andrew to sell you one.
And about the dash?
The dash, yes, that can be done. I believe Pace Automotive do a controller for that, so touch out to them.
We mentioned in the Cagney video that we were rebuilding the car for the original winner of Dirty 130.
Correct.
Someone's asking, is the Dirty 130 going to be up for sale?
So the Dirty 130 currently is owned by somebody. If it ever does come up for sale, you guys will be the first to know about it.
Can you put a manual on a BMW engine?
Yeah, so we've designed a billet adapter that basically does exactly that. So it mounts to the 6-speed in the Puma, which is the MT82. We've got kits on the shelf. If you want a kit, guys, please get in touch.
Is it possible to buy a fully complete LS3 V8 swap kit for my Defender 110 to install it myself? And how much would that be?
So when it comes to kits, guys, I have literally lost hair this week about talking about kits. People ring me, how much is a kit, Dave? How much is this? We currently charge 55,000, guys, for a full LS3 conversion. The reason why we charge that, guys, is because it's so intense, everything that's involved. And to sell a kit, I might as well build the car. So it's a no-brainer for me, guys, to charge near enough the same amount to build it. So, and what I like to do is build it and accurately do everything, because if I sell you bits of a kit, you're going to be on the phone to me every 5 minutes. Where does this go, Dave? Where does that go? And I've had exactly that, and you know who you are because you watched this video. So it's a frustration on my behalf, and there's only one of me, guys, so have a bit of respect for me. If you buy something off me, offer to pay for my time before you tune my ear off, because who else pays me if you don't?
A few questions in one. This is on Rob's first drive in his recent M57 swap. It's the 8HP. Have you ever exported one of these to South Africa?
No, we haven't, but same again, gets lots of questions about that, guys. And what I am going to offer, if you want one of these kits, I have a 90 rolling chassis that you're going to see in a moment when I go out there. And what we're going to offer is, it's going to be called, let's call it the dry build. So I basically build the entire conversion kit, drop it into a car, I'm going to drive it around the estate, and then I'm going to take it to a live tuning, and I'm going to dyno it, and then I'm going to lift it all out, I'm going to put it inside a crate, and I'm going to ship it to you. The reason I'm going to do that, guys, is because I don't want to be held responsible for something failing, especially when you are whatever million kilometers it is between ourselves and yourselves. So if something's going to go across the bond, guys, I want to test it, and I want to test it to its full, you know, maximum temperature, minimum starting temperature. We've had issues recently with injectors, and we've had endless pain with injection shops. I'm not going to name names because they use genuine Bosch test rigs. But after a conversation with the Bosch shop the other day, I said to them, I said, what temperature do you start testing these injectors from? They said 40 degrees. I've got issues from 0 and sometimes -0. So the other day when we had that really cold spell, it was -6 here. We fired up our car and it was like a smoke machine. And I'm sitting there thinking, what is wrong? You know, we're literally like, that car runs perfect when it's hot. Mechanically, perfect. You can't run any nicer. But my feeling is that Bosch have made those injectors very different in that range. So from 0 to 40 degrees, there is something weird going on with rebuilt injectors. So now, like today, I've got the invoice somewhere, £1,700, guys, for a set of 6 brand new injectors. I think you pay about $950 or something for a set of reconditioned ones. It's a fair jump, guys, but unfortunately, from now on, I will be adding that price on to my conversion cost because I'm frustrated with that. So smoking up to 40 degrees. If somebody can help me and knows the answer to this, guys, because I'm really, every day's a school day in this world.
With Rob's build, what sort of towing weight would it handle without breaking the sweat?
I would confidently say that that car would pull gross vehicle weight, is standard in it, I think it's 3.5 tonne. I would comfortably put 3.5 tonne behind that car. In fact, I have. If you look back to one of my earlier videos, I took that car to the galvanisers. My trailer was on the hilt, you know, proper loaded up. I didn't weigh it, guys, so I can't, you know, put accurate results down. But I tested it, and I tested it because I wanted my customer to have the best machine he possibly could.
And how well do you think it would handle high temperatures on long journeys?
So we're building an overlanding car now currently, and it's all down to speccing the car to suit what its intended plans are going to be and what it's been built for. So bigger cooling pack, twin electric fans, backup fans, twin fans on the AC condenser, anything to get that air moving through that radiator will aid you. And we can do things as well where we can do number 6 cylinder, we can do a cooling mod. It's like a little billet bracket that I'm going to show you in a photo shortly that goes on the back of the cylinder head that basically allows fluid to be transferred to the back of the cylinder. Anybody that knows about 6 in a row cylinders, come in, suffer with it. I believe some of the straight 6 petrol cars suffer with it. But it's basically to divert fluid to the back of the head with a little Bosch 12-volt pump to just cool that rear cylinder.
This is on a engine mounting video. Planning to install a Toyota 2UZ FE 4.7 in my Defender 110. Given I already purchased a Toyota Tundra and I'm ready to source any necessary parts from it, do you think I should keep the Defender's original transmission and differentials, or would it be better to swap out from the Toyota to the Defender?
So with that kind of swap, my advice from previous experience, we did it with a Ford F-150 once. My advice is run everything, because then you're going to have prop angles, diff angles, all that kind of to think about, guys. A lot of people overlook that when they do engine conversions. They put the gearbox in, they go, yeah, that looks right, it's nice in the middle, put props in, etc. But what they forget about is prop angles. Then the car gets to 80 miles an hour and you've got this horrible, like a resonance. And that's because you've got something wrong. Like your prop angles are probably too steep or too shallow or not quite in line. So that is an important thing to think about.
From our dry ice blasting video, when you retreat a chassis or underside, what do you use instead of wax oil?
Instead of wax oil, guys, so for those of you that follow my videos, you'll be familiar with Kent coating. So we use 3 different products. So we use something that attacks the rust. So that's a rust converter. Almost turns the chassis like a purple. Then we use a primer. Sometimes we use construction primer, which is effectively red oxide. Everybody knows red oxide is the go-to to prevent rust and a good adherer. And then from the red oxide side of it, we go with a final coat. So the final coat is either tough coat or we use an underbody spray. The underbody spray is the final finish. We can either offer a nice shiny, what can I say, like a satin finish, or we can offer a matte finish, which is the tough coat.
Back to Rob's first drive. How much is insurance on one of these conversions over a standard Defender?
So insurance, guys, that's a funny one. I can't dictate where you live, what your situation is. A lot of insurers nowadays are asking for trackers, like the ultimate alarm systems. That does bring your price down. And I'll have to ask Rob actually what he actually pays, but it's all down to age, guys. So you're asking me a really random question of how long's a piece of string on that one.
It looks like you've managed the holy grail of mating an M57 to the 8HP. I'll be interested to hear what challenges you had in mating the two together, such as what TCU did you use? So,
TCU side of it, guys, we use CAN TCU. The reason why we did that is because others have used it. We're good friends with Will at House of Talk. Will's a very good, supportive chap of ours. I want to say we've grown businesses together. So Will came here fresh out of uni and helped me build Miami, which was my first shop truck. Twin turbo monster, him, Max and his other friends, we all put our heads together and built a fine machine. Those guys have now gone on to starting a company called House of Talk. For those of you that follow this video, if you need any part, stop hassling me, ring Will. Right? I know I'm probably losing custom doing that, guys, but I'm too busy, keeping my boys busy and putting dedication into my builds. He is a one-stop shop for parts, and if you need anything from me, just ask Will to come and buy it from me and send it out in a kit. That's what he's doing, and he's doing it very well.
What are the ballpark costs for a car like this?
So that conversion, guys, I charge 55,000. That is fully reconditioned everything. So we don't just pull an engine and gearbox out and just throw a new one in there. We recondition your chassis, we recondition the areas that it's going to go into. Your bulkhead gets painted, areas get prepped, wings get taken off. If your bulkhead is rusty, it gets tidied up. We discuss every part of the relationship of the process. So if you want one, guys, please get in touch.
Can you fit an M57 to a left-hand drive Defender?
So that is a very popular asked question. So we're currently working on it. On Little Hilda, you've noticed we've done the 24-volt conversion. So we've got a mighty big alternator in there. We've currently got one in the works. I've actually ordered a left-hand drive steering box to drop into the chassis so we can do it for you guys. The plan is to use a 300 TDI alternator above the steering box. It's going to be a bit of trickery. You're going to have to run like a remote airbox, that kind of thing, but it's doable.
Has Mahker ever done seat box lowering or bulkhead changes to improve legroom or ergonomics?
Yeah, so the issue with dropping the seat box, guys, as you know, the battery lives in there. I am looking at making a kit, guys, that will basically be a seat box kit, which will put the battery level with the bottom of the chassis. Yes, it's possible to get damage, that kind of thing, but I will be including like an armour protection from the, if you imagine my left hand's the chassis, there'll be armour to protect the battery case, but it'll also help people like myself, the tall guys. You can get a nice comfier seat, deeper seat in there. It's one of them things, guys, it's not a priority to me right now, but it will be in the works sometime soon.
From the M57 comprehensive swap guide, is the conversion the same on all Defenders, or is there a difference between converting a 300 TDI, TD5 Puma, for example?
So, depends, guys. So, you've got lots of options there, and I was been chatting to a guy earlier from the US. You've got to think about what gearbox. If you're going with something modern, guys, electric shifter, you can put that anywhere you want. You can use our console, which we will be selling separately. If you want to go MT82, which is the 6-speed in the Puma, obviously a Puma is the best one to convert. If you want to put one into, say, a TDI, like we did on Rob's, Ratty's, which is Project Rodent, we made our own bespoke aluminium tunnel, and that went from a TDI tunnel to a Puma seat box. Well, sorry, a TD5 seat box, which is effectively the same. And we basically formed it and then used the centre housing, and I think it looks the nuts. So something we could produce for those who want to run the 6-speed manual in a TDI.
And final one for this video. Which new seats, if you could choose any, would you put in a Defender TD590?
New seats. So my favourite is the Recaro CS. A lot of you see me sitting in these seats. These seats were actually a gift from Ruskin. These are, so when I sit in it here, you probably notice my shoulders feel like this. I feel like I'm hunched, and I wouldn't like to sit in this seat for long. But when I sit in a Recaro CS, I feel like the back is more accepting to broader kind of people. If you're like a petite size 6, you're sound in these seats, but I'm far from that. I like cars in Defenders not to have, you know, the bolsters either side of your legs, because I like to stretch my left leg out, right leg out, just to be more comfortable, I guess. So the Recaro CS is the go-to for me. Anyway, thanks again for watching, guys. If you have any questions, don't text me, don't call me, don't email me, drop it on YouTube. And I can't emphasize enough, guys, listen to the voicemails this week. If you are serious on a build, if you live the other side of the world, I understand you can't come and see me. But if you live in the UK, guys, please schedule a call with me. I'll drop you my personal number. I can give you my email address, etc., which is info@mahker.com, and plan to come and see me, guys. You know, my time is precious, as yours is, and you can sit in front of me and we can plan a build. How about that? Thanks again for watching. I'll see you again soon.